everyone, what is up, Artemers? I hope you are so well today. I wanted to ask, shouldn't we just be nice for no reason? And this is only bad because it takes away their suffering. Valentine's Day is coming up, and so I thought it would be awesome to talk about one of my favorite values, benevolence, or being good for no reward. What I did not expect in researching benevolence is how complicated and in-depth it can be. I guess that's one awesome thing about being a philosopher. You make everything as complicated as it can possibly get. As some of you may know, I largely study Nietzsche, his works, his concepts, and his very non-systematic thinking, which is very similar to my own. And so my first thought was to look to Nietzsche as to what his thoughts would be on benevolence, but of course there are a lot. Some say a lot of contradictions, but mostly just a lot of feelings. But lo and behold, I came to find that Nietzsche actually writes about a sort of non-benevolent benevolence. And so he calls this feeling pity, to which only makes him contradictory by the fallacy of double definition. But for a few different reasons, Nietzsche actually calls benevolence bad. And so with this, we are going to be taking them as very interesting talking points, and also how to not be benevolent. Now, of course, we do have to look elsewhere to find how to be benevolent, because Nietzsche was not really in the industry of helping other people. Really, he was trying to be more protective over each and every person, trying to show the evils of society and really our truest selves. But that's okay. Looking toward Immanuel Kant and his categorical imperatives, I do believe that there are true forms of benevolence, and so I will go on and talk about what it is later, but I do believe it encapsulates what benevolence truly is. And so, Nietzsche, I don't think it's bad. We'll get onto that later. For our example of benevolence and the possible variations or views on how not to do it or how people think it's impossible, we'll be looking at the classic year 2000 Disney movie, The Emperor's New Groove, to which its Disney Plus description is: a selfish emperor learns a lesson in humility when he is turned into a llama. There are actually two terms when it comes to benevolence, both benevolence and beneficence. And so beneficence and benevolence are a part of the same category, but are differentiated by action and moral value, or motion and morality. To make things simple, I'm just going to stick with one word today. Benevolence. Rolls right off the tongue. But the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy does define these two as: beneficence refers to actions or rules aimed at benefiting others. Benevolence refers to the morally valuable character trait or virtue of being disposed to act to benefit others. And so the encyclopedia actually goes on to list a number of different values, including Kant's categorical imperative. So to quote them again, Kant argues that everyone has a duty to be beneficent, i.e., to be helpful to others according to one's means, and without hoping for any form of personal gain thereby. And so Kant created his duty-based philosophy, deontology, to oppose consequentialist philosophies like utilitarianism, to which can be used to excuse anything if the consequences or the end result justifies the means, is better for the good. So Kant thought of a way to not do that. But largely, we ought not to be good because it will prove to be rewarding in the end. Benevolence is the opposite of this. And so in turn, we ought to be good because it is our duty. Kant writes that this can be our only motivation towards helping others. Duty. Duty to what, you may ask? That might be a question for another day. As a Nietzschean, I believe that this would be towards our duties that we set upon ourselves, including that of knowing change exists, and we also have to change what we ally our duties toward, our values. So, duty to ourselves and what we represent and are. That's what I would guess. But really, we might just have to do a Kant video soon to get a deeper understanding of what he sees as duty. To get into our example of the Emperor's New Groove, for those of you who haven't seen it yet, I will be going over most of the details and spoiling everything, so know that. But the movie, The Emperor's New Groove, is about a very selfish person and a very unselfish person. Starting with Kuzco, we enter the movie with the classic mid-movie calamity to see just exactly who this guy is.
I was the world's nicest guy and they ruined my life for no reason.
But then, of course, we get all the way taken back to the beginning of his life and the movie, to where we realize Kuzco isn't a nice guy at all. He has been given everything throughout his entire life. And so, is it for no reason? Probably not. Because Kuzco's world literally revolves around him, he thinks it's fine to take and have anything that he wants. He was raised that way, honestly, if I can just say that right here and now. He was raised wrong. But then we meet Yzma, who realistically wants to do the same thing. Yzma is the villain of the film, and it seems to be the epitome of evil as well as selfishness. But what's ironic is that Kuzco knows that she wants to take over the palace, and so therefore fires her. Because of course, she can't take whatever she just wants to take. She's not the emperor, I guess. But next we meet Pacha, who is only summoned to the palace for one single reason.
Booyah! Welcome to Kuzco-topia.
But, where will we live?
Don't know, don't care.
But there's some really, whispered words in there that the crops and the llamas are for the palace. And so that is a very key ingredient in what the emperor is trying to do. In stealing the frickin', destroying a village, a home, just for a summer house, just for a little summertime getaway, for your own birthday? No. It's not cool. Kuzco's lack of self-awareness, as well as sociological imagination, is staggering. Luckily for him and his self-growth, Yzma turns him into a llama, and with a bunch of rigmarole, he ends up with Pacha again.
I'll just snap my fingers and order her to change me back. Hey, you. No time to waste. Let's go.
Build your summer house somewhere else.
You want to run that by me again?
I wouldn't recommend it. It's a little dangerous if you don't know the way.
Nice try, pal.
No, really, I'm telling you, there are jaguars and snakes. There's no Kuzco. There's no Kuzco-topia.
What happens next just shows another layer of lack of Kuzco's self-awareness, in that he's just going to order Yzma to change him back. Hey, you, let's go. Kuzco's feeling of superiority is almost so exacerbated that this is an example of the extreme, but I think that's why I really enjoy it. I do think that Pacha is realistically right to ask Kuzco to change his construction plans in order to help him get him back, and this wouldn't really be benevolence. This would be, a favor for a favor. But of course, Kuzco doesn't want to change his mind, and so does not believe Pacha that the jungle is very dangerous, and only believes that Pacha is saying that it's dangerous because he wants him to change his plans. Just one of the many points in which he accuses Pacha of doing the right thing for the wrong reasons. And so here I ask us, Hugh, here today, should Pacha help Kuzco get back to the palace? Would you? Would I? To get to more of my opinion, we will get further into the video, but I would love to know your opinion too. As this is a Disney movie, Pacha does look worried for Kuzco as he's heading towards the dangerous jungle. But should he feel bad? You know, no Kuzco, no Kuzcotopia. But like, he said the jungle was very dangerous, so realistically, should he feel bad enough to secure the Emperor's life? And to then help him home? And to then get his own home destroyed? That is the biggest question of the movie. In the words of Friedrich Nietzsche, pity preserves things that are ripe for decline. Pity negates life, and it makes life worthy of negation. And so as we can see, Kuzco is in some dire need of some suffering, of some life, of some having to go through suffering and to learn from it. Nietzsche affirms that life is suffering, and so we grow by enduring life and all of the pain that it causes. With all of this, suffering is good. And so for Nietzsche, benevolence, hindering someone's ability to grow through their own suffering, is bad. And this is only bad because it takes away their suffering. Nietzsche might say that Pacha is hindering Kuzco's ability to grow as a human being by helping him. To preface Nietzsche's next thought, as I said before, he does write on a sort of non-benevolent benevolence and calls this pity. But just as Nietzsche uses the single word truth to indicate Plato's ideal world, or maybe truths we're told throughout our lives, Nietzsche might be using the word benevolence to indicate piety. So I also want to talk about more on that later. But I want to quickly sum up Nietzsche's thoughts on pity, on the duality within the master-slave relationship, which, if you don't know, this excludes the Übermensch values. So it's only masters and slaves duality. The stronger are able to build up more reasons for the weaker to be submissive, and this gives them a sense of superiority. And then the weaker see themselves as being good, but this only furthers their submission toward the stronger. So with that, Nietzsche would say that Pacha is only furthering his servitude toward Kuzco by helping him, in either case of it being for himself or for no reason. And then with a double-edged sword, Kuzco is only furthering his superiority by allowing Pacha to help him as well as helping Pacha. Here I say, F master-slave morality. We are Übermensch. So what does an Übermensch's benevolence look like? Is it still harmful to people's becoming? You know, their downgoing and overgoing and becoming throughout their suffering? I don't think so. In the words of Immanuel Kant, so act that your principle of action might safely be made a law for the whole world. So have you ever wondered where the golden rule comes from? I have, for my whole life. And it actually comes from ancient Egyptian values. But Kant has pretty much gotten it down to a very complicated system called the Categorical Imperative. Surprisingly, the Categorical Imperative also has a dictionary definition, so I wanted to read that for you as well. In Kantian ethics, an unconditional moral obligation which is binding in all circumstances and is not dependent on another person's inclination or purpose. In other words, a moral duty that can be applied as a universal law in all situations and does not make use of any other people or treat people as you want to be treated. Because to do otherwise, or to do something and then it done unto yourself and you call it bad, that is hypocrisy, and no one wants that. And so in the case of Kuzco, Pacha, Yzma is trying to take what isn't rightly hers. So is Kuzco. Yet Kuzco fires her because she's not the emperor. No, you're a hypocrite, Kuzco. Pacha seemingly understands that people in the world should be treated how you want to be treated. Because even after Kuzco says he will build his summer home no matter what, Pacha does go into the jungle to save him from the jungle.
Don't worry, Your Highness, I gotcha. You're safe now.
To further explain the second part to the categorical imperative, Kant believes we ought not to use people as a means to an end. Man is to be respected as an absolute end in himself. It is a crime against the dignity that belongs to him as a human being to use him as a mere means for some external purpose. And so in the truest spirit of benevolence, Pacha can't actually help Kuzco in order to save his home, his village, the crops, the llamas.
Deep down, I think you'll realize that you're forcing an entire village out of their homes just for you.
And that's bad.
But the truest sense of Pacha's kindness is that he is not trying to save his home, but he is trying to save an environment that is deeply seated within Kuzco's own community, his own palace. And so at the same time, he is also trying to help him because the jungle is very dangerous. To put it more simply, Pacha is trying to help Kuzco while also trying to convince him that there's more people in the world than himself. Some may even see Pacha as suffering on behalf of his entire village in order to convince Kuzco, having to deal with Kuzco basically, which is pretty much his job as the village leader, aka one of his many duties that he has to follow, aka he's still following the categorical imperative.
Now take me back.
What? Wait. How can you be this way? All you care about is building your summer home and filling it with stuff for you.
Yeah, Doi, me. Everyone else in the kingdom gets it. You're the only one that doesn't seem to be with the program. Pacha?
And so to ask again, should Pacha be helping Kuzco get back to the palace? Does he have to? With this one clip, I can tell that Pacha's benevolent acts are not in accordance with Nietzsche's thoughts on the master-slave pity relationship of deepening the submission between the weaker and the stronger. Kuzco even said it. Everyone else is with the program. Truly, Pacha's duties lie toward his village, but what he's trying to do here is to convince someone pretty much to take a better path and to not walk toward their death. Pacha even says, hey, no Kuzco, no Kuzcotopia, but nobody's that heartless. The next morning, we finally do see Kuzco shake a deal with Pacha in that he is a changed man. And we might think so, and after being so grateful about the poncho, Pacha's poncho. But the way in which he says in this next clip, no, thank you. Really, you can kind of tell, it's fairly obvious that Kuzco is a conniving.
I mean, there's lots of hilltops, and maybe I might, I might...
Are you saying you've changed your mind?
Oh, well,
Because you know that means you're doing something nice for someone else.
No, thank you.
I really love the way that when they are shaking hands on the deal, Pancha gives him such a look in his eye that you're like, is this guy really trying to be... Is he being a liar? But I think it's a precursor to later in the movie to where he says he sees the good in Kuzco, and I think that is very beautiful. Unfortunately, it did backfire a teensy bit, or, within 2 minutes But we suddenly know that Kuzco is a huge big fat liar within 2 minutes of them shaking hands when frickin' Pancha is hanging from a broken bridge for his life.
Kuzco!
Yeah.
Quick, help me up.
No, I don't think I will. Oh, yeah, it all was a lie. Toodles!
We shook hands on it!
Okay, bye-bye.
You may not know this, but lying is actually Kant's almost always #1 example when explaining the categorical imperative, both because it uses other people as a means to an end, as well as affecting everyone around you in a way that you wouldn't want for yourself. And we can never actually look at the consequences of our lying as a reason for them to be good or bad, because again, Kant's categorical imperative is a duty-based philosophy that specifically goes against consequentialism. And so for that reason, lying is always wrong, so is killing, even by omission or bystander.
You just saved my life.
What's the big deal? Nobody's that heartless. You mean you're still taking me back?
I shook on it, didn't I?
Well, yeah. But I hope you realize that doesn't change a thing.
Who knows? Maybe you'll change your mind.
So boom, nobody's that heartless. Kuzco might finally be starting to understand. And I have to say that I'm still building Kuzcotopia does not directly imply I'm still taking your home. I'm still destroying your village. Realistically, without a large enough heart or, sociological imagination, again, Kuzco doesn't realize that he would more than likely kill a village of people, not necessarily move them. Do you have a backup plan? Do you have a place for them to go? Probably not. And so what about the crops and the llamas? If you're selfish, think about your own things going on within the village you're about to destroy, just as a way to get your foot in the door. And so you may be wondering, isn't Pacha still trying to help Kuzco to help himself? Doesn't maybe you'll change your mind directly imply where Pacha's motivations lie? Can he actually help Kuzco while trying to help his own village at the same time? Isn't that not benevolence? Well, I would answer that he's trying to be dutiful in a lot of areas in his life right now. Toward his work as a village leader, toward his personhood, he is just practicing the categorical imperative, or the universal law. If he lets the llama go out alone into the jungle, he knows that Kuzco, the llama, will die. And nobody's that heartless. But of course, there are people out in the world that do believe that benevolence cannot exist without people helping others as a means to get what they want.
Oh, I get it.
What?
You don't want to take me back to the palace. You want to keep me stranded out here forever.
No!
This has all been an act, and I almost fell for it.
Egoism is a school of philosophy that believes that all people act in accordance of their own ego, and our own self is our largest motivation. And so looking at benevolence, egoists believe that people can only do good things in order to look good for themselves, or to further their social standing, or to just maybe be conniving. Another reason would be to build up one's character better than it actually might be. And Nietzsche would agree with this in that he sees pity as a way of people masking their own weaknesses. Egoism is, however, a direct opposite to the categorical imperative, or at least acting toward it, in that you cannot use people as a means to an end. Getting back to our mid-movie calamity, Kuzco finally realizes, after going through hurdles of suffering, that he is not the world's nicest guy at all, and maybe some things are actually because of him. I do truly love how Disney solved getting Kuzco and Pacha back together after the whole Jacques moment, because it is seriously as random as it can get.
Hey, listen, Pacha. What I said to you, back at the diner, I didn't really...
So, you tired of being a llama?
The setting for this resolve truly speaks to the religious connotations that can be found within doing good things for no reason. As the latest hit TV show, The Good Place, made it very clear, doing good things in order to go to heaven is not a very good reason to do good things. The term piety is a moral duty founded on religion. More specifically, and for those of you who have read Plato, piety has numerous possible definitions that point toward doing what God would like us to do, or to do what would be liked by the gods, and also to do as the gods or God would like us to do in order to be further in their favor, say to go to heaven. However, concerning Nietzsche's view on pity and the master-slave morality, pious acts would be a further submission toward God, and this would continue the negation of life and its suffering, and life's suffering being good. Additionally, piety as a motivation would also go directly against the categorical imperative, as it would also use others as a means to an end. And so while still being duty-based, piety cannot actually be within the same realm of benevolence as it is look toward a reward. Truly it is a sort of mixture between benevolence and consequentialism. In order for benevolence to be good and for it to actually match its definition, we really just need to keep our kindness to ourselves. And so again from Kant, to be helpful to others according to one's means and without hoping for any form of personal gain thereby. I was able to also find a solution from Nietzsche from the podcast Breaking the Spell, but the speaker Douglas did not offer a direct quote. But basically, be invisible. Don't let other people know that you're helping them. And I love that. Invisibility, honestly, would cleanse us of any sense of egoism or egotistical nature and using someone else in order to do that, be it looking good or furthering your social status. And so with this, if we do knowingly rely too much on others, I would agree with Nietzsche in that suffering is good and benevolence hinders our ability to grow through it. Because truly we wouldn't want any sort of dependence to be placed on something that's never always going to be there. In the case of calling benevolence bad solely because it takes away people's suffering and this hinders them, what about the situations that call for more than one person, and that situation is only handed to one person? In the case of the Emperor's New Groove, Pacha knows that Kuzco will not be able to withstand the suffering that is the jungle. He almost has to help him with that. And so in my opinion, Kuzco wouldn't have been able to grow as much as he did had Pacha not been there for him. Both literally with conversations about how to be a better person, but also withstanding the jungle itself. Kuzco could have died. No one wants that. That's not a movie.
Okay, I admit it. Maybe I wasn't as nice as I should have been. But, Yzma, do you really want to kill me?
Of course, with too much invisible benevolence, we may end up seeing something like the magical washing machine or something TikTok video, where a husband thought things magically happened by themselves. No. I'm sorry, that can't be good. But that might be a conversation for another day. In either case, invisible or not, Kant says our only motivation can be duty. Our motivation can only realistically be how we want to be treated within the same situation, while at the same time not using another person. And so that's why I love this movie. It gives so many examples and situations, but mostly life and death extremes. I love how they even thought that we would believe for a second that Kuzco would choose the vial over Pacha. We've grown too much. We're far too into the movie. And honestly, I don't think I was ever surprised. Gearing toward the end here, I do want to say that the whole Pacha-ism of nobody's that heartless is very interesting when you think about it. One may even see nobody's that heartless as a direct line toward egoism, as it has the word nobody, somebody is that heartless, and so you feel superior in that maybe you are better than someone else out there in the world. But nonetheless, Kuzco is a changed man.
All is forgiven.
You're sure?
Oh, it's not the first time I was tossed out a window, and it won't be the last. What can I say? I'm a rebel.
Whoa, Tiger.
Honestly, had it not been for the scene directly after Kuzco's transformation, I would have a lot more questions about his motivation, about not, doing the whole summer home. But at the very beginning of the movie, we do see an old man, also the voice of Piglet, Kuzco, shove Piglet out of a window and now apparently feels very completely terrible about it. And it's just the two of them when he's apologizing. It would be 100% different if Kuzco was making public apologies. I'm sorry everyone, look at me, I'm a changed man. No, just him and old man Piglet. Either way, because of this tiny little scene, I do think that Kuzco's motivations do lie more toward true benevolence than pity when he does change his summer plans.
I'll be building my summer home on a more magical hill. Thank you.
I'm pretty sure I heard some singing on the hill next to us. In case you're interested.
The proof in the pudding of benevolence over pity is, if you remember back to the theme song toward the beginning of the movie, a perfect world begins and ends with us, not me at all. And so classic Tom Jones here flipped the script. All week I've been wondering, does Kuzco just feel bad? Like pity, but not in the Nietzschean sense, just literally he just feels pressure to move elsewhere. But then you see this whole friendship of beautifulness, and the TV show really proves that. But especially when you consider the size difference of his summer home plans and what it actually came to be, really it's smaller than Pacha's home. If Kuzco is still this super egotistical person who is so selfish, he wouldn't stand to have a smaller house than Pacha. We know that. So yes, he has changed. To get back to Pacha and Nietzsche, how do we know when others need help in their suffering? Not to hinder their suffering, but to actually help them. And maybe the answer is just that simple. It's Kant. Categorical Imperative. Acting by universal rules. And so you'd know from knowing when you would need help in a situation. It's as simple as that. And so in summary, should we be nice for no reason? We shouldn't be nice or benevolent if it concerns the outcome at all. We shouldn't be helpful for when it's for our own gain solely, or for when we just want to go to heaven. Relative to all this, we should be nice for no reason, other than the reason to just be nice. Honestly, it's not a circular definition fallacy, I don't think. But of course, there is the case where we maybe know that people will be able to grow from suffering, and so we'll choose not to help them. And so, booyah, Nietzsche. I do agree with you. But I think there is a point to knowing if that person can and will overcome their suffering, and that is where we have to ask ourselves, should we help them? If you don't think that they will, maybe you should. If you think that they should be able to, I don't know. I think that's a personal question. Honestly, when it comes to deciphering whether or not you should help someone and knowing whether or not they will be able to grow from it, that might be a question for another day in looking at the actual good sides of consequentialism and not, you know, only looking at the bad side as we did today. I'm starting to blabber on now because I'm definitely at my intro. That is all of it for me today. If you guys have any thoughts at all, I would absolutely love to know. I am seriously still bursting at the seams with thoughts on this. If I didn't want to make a stupid long video. So if you guys would want like a part 2, definitely let me know. Give me all the follow-up questions that you have. Also, if you can't really tell, this video broke my brain a little bit. We might do something easy for the next one. Either way, it's been a whole lot of fun reading, writing, researching, and honestly, I love you guys' joining in the comments. It is motivational. That's a fun thought for you. Motivations. If you don't have any direct thoughts toward the actual like philosophies of it all, I would still love to know like what you would do if you were Pacha or if you were Kuzco. Would you help Kuzco back to the palace knowing he's a total, you know, jackass? Or would you, as Kuzco, you know, not be a jackass, I guess is really... Don't pretend to be Kuzco. There's really just no good way. Only pretend to be Pacha and let me know what you would do. Okay, anywho, I hope you have a happiest Valentine's Day, and I really, really appreciate you spending time here at the channel, watching, commenting, liking, subscribing, whatever you're doing today. With that, I gotta say that our Artem family is growing larger. We got another Patreon, so it's crazy. I'd love to do a video on, you know, the motivation that comes from having a following, like I was just saying. But if you're here all the way at the end of the video, I super duper appreciate it. Again, I really appreciate you taking the time to spend time here with me. That sentence had 2 words twice. I'm so sorry. I hope you have a really fantastic rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Alright, bye!